Hello, my name is Joshua Keith, and this is theburningcoal.com, a website dedicated to God's glory, His grace, and our response to it. Today, I want to talk about being thankful for the church that God created. And really, this is a culmination of what we've been talking about for the past month in our Thankful Thursdays. We've talked about different types of people that are there for us and support us. But those people being our lives is not an accident. God actually designed it a very specific way. He designed for these people to be in our lives by creating the church. And it's important for us to take time to be thankful for the church because our society as a whole does not appreciate it as an institution. Instead, a lot of people think that it's okay to be a Christian and not be a part of the church. In fact, they might even brag about their Christianity outside of the church. They make it sound like the church is something that is bad. It's very common in our culture today, and we need to be wary of what's happening in our culture because, again, those things impact how we think. This was made even stronger by the fact that we just recently went through the pandemic, and during that pandemic, there were people who were very concerned about their health. And so what did they do? Well, they streamed services through an electronic format and were very thankful that we had that technology. But if we take from that what God really designed for us is that we could be Christians as long as we're electronically participating in a service, a podcast, a lesson, then we're missing what God actually designed for his people, what he designed specifically for me and for you to be successful in our walk as Christians. Notice what Paul talks about in Ephesians chapter 4. And here he's talking about how God has given us leaders of the church, and those leaders of the church teach us that way we are able to do the work and support one another. And he gets to this conclusion in verse 16 where he talks about Jesus Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. And so what we see here is that the whole body is joined together by each of us. Each of us are a joint in this body. And when we're working properly, when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we're going to make the body grow up and it's going to be able to build itself up in love. And so that is something that's very valuable for us. It's very encouraging if we appreciate it, if we honor it, if we participate in it. And so we can be built up in love by God's church. And that's something that we should be taking advantage of. And really, when you go back and look at the different things that we've talked about, we see what great things the church does for us. First of all, the church is able to teach us. And yes, we have God's word and we're able to read it. But sometimes there are difficult passages. And not only are there difficult passages, but there's difficult applications of those passages. And sometimes we get so stuck in the moment, stuck in what we're feeling, that we need someone to step outside and to teach us what it is that God would have us do in this moment. We also are given people who encourage us. In fact, when we talk about Barnabas, what was it that he was doing? How was he giving that courage to others? He was doing it through the church. He was supporting the church. He was one part of that body. He was one joint that was equipping others. And he too was being encouraged. But what we see is that when we're weak, that's a terrible time to be alone. When you're discouraged, that's the terrible time to not have anybody to turn to. And again, an electronic podcast, an electronic service doesn't always give that encouragement that a person can give face to face to tell us to stand strong, to keep on fighting. And finally, the idea of the church being able to help us. It's wonderful to be able to have people that we can rely on, that are willing to give, that are willing to serve. And that's what we all need to be in God's church. But again, God knows that we are but dust. God knows that we're going to need help, that we can't do it on our own. And so he didn't leave us to our own devices. Instead, he gave us this church so that way we could be helped in our time of sorrow, in our time of difficulty, in our time of trial, and that we could also help those when they are going through it and we are stronger. And so we see God's ingenious design in giving us a church that we're able to teach one another, to encourage one another, and to help one another. We have been truly blessed by God's love and his planning in giving us such a group. I hope this lesson blesses you in your walk in his kingdom.